Call the March 11, 2019 meeting of Peters Township Council to order. Mr. Lauer, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Merrill?
Present.
Mr. Steigel? Present. Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Kozer?
Here.
Mr. Berquist?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Present.
Mr. Lewis? Here.
We have a Boy Scout in the back of the room. Can you come forward, young man? I guess I've gotten to the age where I can refer to Boy Scouts. That's kind of scary. Tell us your name, sir.
I am Michael Batko from Boy Scout Troop 1313 out of St. Ben's.
Okay, Michael, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Yes. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michael, you can go have a seat. I'm sure Mr. Lewis is going to grill you later.
So pay attention and take notes.
First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 25th, 2019. I know, Mrs. Merrill, you had requested some revisions this afternoon to those minutes.
Yes, I sent a note to Mr. Lauer under 9A automated garbage collection. I had made a comment about the fact that the request from Quail Run for smaller containers was something that we should be looking at, and that it's something that going forward with future developments we should really be thinking about, because the same situation is going to occur, and we're designing lovely locations that are going to have to put their garbage in the front of the house. So I sent a note to Mr. Lauer with the verbiage. I copied you, sir, Mr. Chairman. So if you would mind including that in that statement, please.
And I don't, and not to digress, interestingly enough, Ryan reached out to all of the condominium associations, and the representatives from Quail Run came down and saw the two different sizes containers, and they actually prefer the larger one.
Well, there you go. But at least we asked.
But it should, you're right, that should accurately reflect.
Thank you.
Okay,
So and I'd second with the amended minutes.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
I'm going to abstain. I wasn't here.
601, Mr. Lauer. Moving on to special reports. We have Peters Township MS4 program, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection inspection.
Yes, actually, I was going to ask Mr. Zamitis to give you a report on DEP's recent informal audit of our program.
We had an inspection of our MS4 program by the DEP on February 8th. It's kind of a routine inspection. It went very well. The gentleman from the DEP remarked on how well run he thought our program was, how we documented things, how we kept our facilities. I think that Jason DiLoretto, the assistant engineer, and Joe Herson, the public works director, should be commended for doing a nice job in preparation for this inspection. They had us well prepared. I did put a copy of the report. I believe it's in your dockets. There was only one area that they felt might be a future violation if we don't correct it, and that was the way that we wash our vehicles right now. We don't have a contained system that discharges to the sanitary sewer. The thought is when we develop the park and get the maintenance building at the park built, that will include an indoor wash bay for vehicles. In the meantime, Paul had a good idea that he talked to me about before the meeting, that the school district has a facility up at the bus garage. Maybe we can use that as kind of an interim measure. So we'll respond to DEP and we'll let them know that we're working on it, but I just wanted to let council know that occurred.
I noted that the report indicated we were using a biodegradable soap. I thought that was the acceptable option.
Evidently not anymore. We did make them aware that we use a phosphate-free soap or whatever it's called, and they said that's great, but we really prefer that it goes through an oil water separator and into the sanitary sewer. We actually, as kind of a stopgap measure over at Public Works right now, we constructed like a sump inlet where the discharge pipe's like 3 feet above the floor of the basin, so any grit, any solids will settle out, and we can suck it out with the street sweeper truck. But that was evidently not good enough.
Just wait till they come up with the idea that we ought to stop using salt on the roads.
Well, I was trying beet juice a couple of years ago. I know that didn't go over too well.
But I think one of the things I would like to point out is that where Jason and Joe have done a really good job of implementing this, this has been a challenge for a number of municipalities, and this initial informal audit is actually much better than what many of the neighboring communities have been able to achieve. And again, it's largely due to the work those two individuals put into this. So.
I think I'd like to make one other comment. Based on the inspector's list of things or suggestions, one of them has been one that we've thought in this community, which is a separate tax for stormwater. And that was one of his recommendations, and I know I've not been in favor of it, and I hope the rest of the council has not.
I can tell you,
changed their mind.
Yeah, the manager's not in favor of it. It doesn't make sense in Peters Township. Other communities, that tax makes sense, but I do not believe in Peters Township case it does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the section of the meeting for audience comments. Any member of the audience who wishes to speak on a non-agenda item can do so for up to 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak?
Hi, Ann Shaner, 123 Robin Hood Lane, McMurray. At the workshop on March 4th that I attended and listened to comments about the park, I want to say I agree with Mr. Lauer that there should be council consensus when you take a vote on that. That would be the best and ideal situation. So after that workshop, I went out into the community and, just made an inquiry when I would bump into people, ask them if they knew about, the pool situation, the desire to have a pool, all this stuff. And I got mixed messages, okay? Some people, they're not aware of it at all. Now, that's their fault, right? Because if they're not keeping up with their township government, that's on them. However, people that did know about it, some are against it, some are for it. So you have this, big array of mixed feelings about this situation. So myself, personally, I probably will not use this pool, okay? I don't have a pool, but I did not buy my Rosewood Rose Garden membership when I bought my house. I gave it up. I let somebody else do that, okay? So I would not be interested in swimming in a pool. I have a question, though. Would this include an indoor facility, a pool, an indoor pool, the aquatic facility? No? Okay, because in the comments that I was receiving, people were saying, is there going to be an indoor pool? I said, I don't think so, because I looked at the binder that I got from Mr. Lauer, and I did not see an indoor pool. So,
The community, if you can include the school district, the school district is building an indoor pool.
That's right.
So to duplicate that facility.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you would have, but somebody said the water's 65 degrees and they don't want to go swim there, and I think a lot of elderly people would feel the same too. And I do think a lot of elderly people would want to use the indoor pool. So the thing of it is, I remember that Mr. Lauer did mention, he says, should we have another public hearing on this? And I do believe you did. So I'm thinking maybe you should, because I just did a little sampling. I've been out door knocking, I'm politically involved, you all know that, because I'm a committee person. And I ask people when I'm door knocking about the situation. So I've been knocking on a lot of doors. So I just think, and I'm knocking on not just Democratic doors either, okay? So I think to get to consensus, you may very well have to have another public hearing. I think that would be your best route. And so I'm going to say to all the people out there in TV land, call your council people, email them, do whatever you have to do if you have a concern about this issue, to let them know how you feel and if you think there should be a public hearing. Because I think that's maybe your best resolution to this situation, to get to consensus. I would like to see you get to consensus. Like I said, it does not matter to me. I'm not going to use it, okay? I might walk in the park maybe once in a great while. I'm a mountain climber myself. I go out west to do that. So I don't need to use your park, okay? So, oh, one last comment. Also, people were throwing up to me, well, school enrollment's down. I don't have children. I never had children that went to school anywhere. So I don't even know that, okay? Because I'm not into the school thing. So if enrollment's down, I want to know, what studies did you do as far as demographics go too? Like who's going to use this school, you know, and all that. And a lot of people were asking questions about the membership too, you know, how does that work and who's going to get the money and how does that pay the debt down and da-da-da-da-da. I couldn't answer all that. So I just think if you could have a public hearing where you will address some of these issues so that people have a clearer understanding of what this involves. Because some people thought the $10 million was way out of range. I don't know. So that's my 2 cents, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Shaner. Is there anyone else from the audience who wishes to speak? Please state your name and address, sir.
Yes, my name is John Dominic. I have lived at 104 Fairway Drive since 1993. On Sunday, February 24th, around 10:30 in the morning, a pine tree snapped and landed on my next-door neighbor's yard. 30 minutes later, another uprooted and fell. 4 hours later, a third one snapped and landed on my garage, causing extensive damage. All 3 trees are part of the Rolling Hills Park, formerly the Rolling Hills Country Club. Monday, on the 25th, I contacted Mr. Lauer. He came to my home, told my neighbor and I that he would have someone from the maintenance department come out when they were available. Tuesday morning, the maintenance crew came to the house, made plans to remove the fallen trees. They spent the rest of Tuesday and Wednesday morning removing the trees and debris. I am here to say thank you to both Mr. Lauer and all the members of the maintenance department. They were professional, they worked in a safe and efficient manner, and represented the township well. Now comes the but. In the 26 years that I have lived in this township, this is the 7th tree to land in my yard, the 2nd to cause property damage. Numerous trees have fallen in my neighbor's yards as well, causing damage. I have been contacting Rolling Hills Country Club, Township Manager Mike Silvestri, Mr. Zook, Emily Moldovan, and others about the dead and damaged trees on what is now Rolling Hills Park. Over the years, all of the above individuals and others have said that they would take care of the trees that were cut down to extend a tee box, cut down for access and left to rot, or when they cut down one and it wedged between 2 others, so they cut down all 3 and left them lay to rot. Even now, with the latest tree damage, I have a 50-foot stump standing 35 feet from my already damaged garage. When the first tree hit my garage, I paid a $500 deductible and had a loss surcharge applied to my insurance. Now I have a $1,000 deductible and I'm going to have another surcharge applied, all for damages caused through someone else's negligence. The best part of all of this is I had put the house up for sale. The open house was Sunday, February 24th from 1 to 3. The tree fell while the realtor was showing the house. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but the realtor had an open house that she'll not soon forget. And I'm still waiting on an adjuster to come to my home. When Mr. Lauer came to my home, he met with my neighbor, Patty Bartek, and I. He agreed that the trees and grounds needed to be addressed. And I am here hoping for a different outcome than I have had over the years. This area has become not just unsightly, it's unsafe. I have been given a claim form for the damages by the township, but have been told that the claim will be denied. The 3 estimates I have had so far are between $8,000 and $10,000. I'll file the claim with Mr. Gromit so that it is recorded at least, and add it to the file of letters, pictures, certified mail receipts, and denials that I have accumulated over the years. In closing, the township has an ordinance about dead, dying, and diseased trees or parts thereof whose existence pose a hazard to persons or property. I would like to ask you to abide by your ordinance. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry for your difficulties, obviously.
Well-
Have we sent anybody out, and this is something I don't think any of us thought of, have we sent anybody out to Rolling Hills or even for the other parks to look if we have these kind of problems with other trees?
Well, in this particular case, these pine trees need to be removed. There is no question about that. So one of the things that I have done in the meantime, there may actually have some value. These are large white pines. I have a company that does timbering who's going to take a look at these and find out whether or not they can be removed at no expense to the township. But if that's not the case, they need to be felled, because when you're out there, as I was on that day, and it is windy, you can see these trees twist in the wind, and they've reached a size where something needs to be done. So my intention is to somehow address this. We're going to take a little bit of time to figure out what the best strategy to do that. So
One of the problems with white pines is they grow so fast, they get tall so quickly that no one dares to cut them down, so Mother Nature brings them down.
I realize I'm on a time limit here. The problem is, like I said, I've lived there for 26 years. And over the years, nobody would enforce your ordinances. The country club would come down. If a tree fell in my yard, they'd drag it back into the woods. When your arborists come out to my house, 2 years ago, we went through this, right? He came out because of the ash trees. There are so many fallen and dead trees and cut up stumps and some in the wood. I had to give A&S authority to use my yard to cut down trees that belonged on the property that you were acquiring at the time, because they had no access to get to them. And they also wanted to just cut them down and let those trees fall into the woods again. I had to come back and talk to Mr. Zilk and Emily and tell them, you know what, it's enough of a mess. Make them cut the trees down and remove them, and don't let them just fall. So, but it's been an ongoing problem. When your arborist come out, he looked around and saw the trees and said, this is the worst thing you can do. When you let stuff lay against pine trees because they have a single taproot, when you throw all that junk against them, you're basically killing them. So, it's like I said, it's been a problem that's been going on for years. But my biggest concern in all of this is, and Mr. Lara knows that it's an issue, there's a 50-foot stump 35 feet off of my already damaged backyard. It's not going to stay there. It's going to come down. So, I mean, according to your ordinances, it should be removed. According to your ordinances, you basically are supposed to do it within 5 days, but I've been waiting 26 years to get someone to actually do something.
Is that one of the pines you're going to have them look at, Paul?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And it is a safety issue.
I mean, I would agree with that.
It
It's
truly is.
interesting, it wasn't that long ago when Rolling Hills was doing a tree program. There were people over in Crossgates that were
Complaining.
putting ropes around trees on Rolling Hills property saying you can't cut this one down. So,
Well,
I would guarantee you, if you live where he lives,
where I live, you would never take
I
someone.
looked at it here, and those are amazingly big trees.
yes, they
Right, and like I said, and because of the neglect and the way they've treated them over the years,
Yeah.
they are unsafe.
Yep, I get that.
And my second thing is to make you guys aware of it, because if somebody gets hurt, I don't want someone to say to me, why didn't you say something? Why didn't
Sure.
you bring it to our attention? So,
Duly noted.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Please state your name and address, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Julie Cantrell, and I live at 446 East McMurray Road. I was here today because I wanted to get a local non-discrimination ordinance for Peters Township. In Pennsylvania, municipalities are legally empowered by the state to enact local LGBTQ equality laws and policies. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Act of 1955 allows for cities, townships, boroughs, counties to pass non-discrimination ordinance which exceed the state law. With the state having stalled on the LGBTQ legal equality for several decades, communities across Pennsylvania have organized to enact local laws and policies. As of January 2019, at least 54 Pennsylvania municipalities have passed LGBTQ inclusive local non-discrimination ordinances. The residents of those municipalities amount to over 33% of Pennsylvania's overall population. Pennsylvania has the most number of LGBTQ inclusive non-discrimination ordinances adopted by any state in the nation. I have a list of the ones that, not all of them, but a list of many of them that have the non-discrimination ordinances. And there, I have the website, so you could get the link to see them. There's another website too, but I also printed out Mount Lebanon's. This was introduced in 2017. Mount Lebanon is a community that's very similar to ours, so I would think that we would want to have an ordinance that they have so that, we stay competitive with with Mount Lebanon. And I also printed out the city of Pittsburgh's. Not sure if anyone would like the list of municipalities or the ordinances.
Mr. Lala.
So I don't know what, needs to be done to have that ordinance, but I think that for this community, I think that it would be a positive thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? Sir.
Jim Wagner, 150 Thomas Road. Just thing popped into my head with all the tree business going on. If there's, you're looking for a place to dump ground up trees and whatever, could you consider putting them around the trail, around the lake? Your lake.
You mean on
the park?
Mulch.
Yeah, on the path that goes around the lake. It's all these mud and roots.
Oh, grind them up and then mulch.
Yeah, mulching.
Yeah, like using our Splendid.
Yeah, there's a mixed ruling coming from the recreational group over. My recommendation would be in all those muddy spots, and we probably, those of us that walk the lake know where they are, absolutely. But for the runners, they're very concerned about covering over a lot of the roots that are in some of the other areas, so that.
Well, if you come with wood chips, it shouldn't hurt it.
I think they're more concerned about if you cover them, they can't see them.
Right.
So that, if they hit a divot before the root, they could trip or something of that nature.
There's been mixed opinions on whether leaving it natural.
I've been an advocate of a lot more chips out there, but the distribution of them becomes.
You raised a good point.
Yeah, anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Will our Boy Scout come forward, please?
He has a name. You remember? I don't.
I haven't known him long enough to just refer to him as Michael. So, every Boy Scout who comes to a council meeting is subject to Mr. Lewis's interrogation. So, go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Do you know why you're here?
Yes, for my communications merit badge.
Okay. Do you have any idea how the 7 of us got to be here?
Were you elected?
Very good. Okay. And I suppose there's a better question is, why are we here?
Yeah.
None of us would be able to really
Why are we still here?
You're in high school this year?
Yes, it's my junior year.
You're in junior year. And, you don't know Mr. Lauer, but from the standpoint of being the super duper head scout leader of Western Pennsylvania?
I spent a lot of time in Scouts.
Thank you for coming. Pay attention. And really, if you get to the point where after the meeting you have some ideas of what we did wrong, come up and tell us. You do listen.
Oh, Mike will.
How far along are you, sir?
I am currently a Life Scout. I am 2 merit badges away from having all my merit badges done to be legible for Eagle, and then I just have to do my Eagle project.
Good.
Great.
Congratulations. That's
So the question I always ask is, we have some trees that need cut down. What's the last merit badge you've been?
So I will have my communications merit badge done, I'd say, on the 23rd, and then my personal fitness merit badge will be done at the very end of this month.
That's good.
Very good.
And your torture badge for having to go through this meeting.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, let's move on to unfinished business, appointment of an alternate to the Peters Township Planning Commission.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Rochelle Corbel as an alternate to the Planning Commission for a term to expire January 1, 2023.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Moving on to new business. First item being resolution amending the Peters Township Act 537 sewage facility plan to allow for the improvement of the Stonehenge trunk sewer.
So this trunk sewer improvements needed to be able to accommodate the development of the high school and the park. And as a result of upsizing that pipe, there's a amendment required to the Act 537 plan. Mrs. Merrill sent me in a note pointing out correctly that on item O, there's a box that needs to be checked. But normally, Mrs. Merrill, on this completing this checklist, this is something I fill out when this gets mailed in. So that, but you are correct on item O. There's a box that needs to be checked. So that box will be checked, and with that, I'm going to recommend that you adopt a resolution amending the Act 537 plan.
I move we approve resolution number 03-0119, amending the Peters Township Act 537 sewage facility plan to allow for the improvement of the Stonehenge trunk sewer.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is resolution expressing Peters Township Council's support for retaining the county-wide system for earned income tax collection as provided under Act 32 of 2008.
Yes, the House of Representatives directed the Department of Revenue to undertake a study to examine the possibility of collecting earned income taxes on a statewide basis. I quite honestly don't believe that's in the interest of any community in Washington County, and for that reason, we have suggested that governing bodies and municipalities and school districts adopt a resolution, and that resolution be forwarded to their state representatives.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay.
And I can't reinforce enough, I don't think we want the state to collect our wage tax revenue. We have to wait to get it. The program they set up here has really been a big improvement over what it used to be. It wasn't a decade ago, but 5 or 6 years ago.
Well,
What we're doing works well, and I just don't see trying to fix something that's not broken.
If you look at the survey results, the majority of respondents who want that are businesses, many of whom I would imagine don't even necessarily are in Pennsylvania. So hopefully we can get our representatives. I would think everybody should try to also contact their state representatives to make sure this doesn't happen.
7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is resolution amending the Peters Township Personnel Manual by creating various job descriptions.
Yes, what this is creating 2 job descriptions within the library, a library assistant part-time position and a library technician part-time position. And what this is an attempt by Mrs. Olenek to group together people with similar skills under common job titles for the idea of providing flexibility and assigning people to do functions within the library. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Olenek was kind enough to let me review these in advance and help me understand the organizational charts and what the people do. And I think these are well written and they express the duties of the job. So I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 03-03-2019 to amend the Township Personnel Manual.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is payroll and bills.
I've reviewed the payroll and bills, find them in order, and move that they be paid.
I'll second. So motion and a second. Any discussion?
I had 2 questions. In the supplemental sheet that we have here is the Hogan's Heroes
Yes.
checks again, plus an additional one.
Yes.
So what was the status of that, please?
The contract, the initial contract was actually made out to J5 Construction. We've corrected that and re-executed the contract, so it's now made out to Hogan's Heroes doing business as J5. The reason why that check appeared as it did, Ms. Coyle, who does the bookkeeping for us, there actually was a problem in the year prior that I was not aware of, where the 1099 submitted under J5 to the IRS. The IRS actually contacted her and asked her to resubmit it because that tax identification number refers to Hogan's Heroes. So that's why that change had occurred on the check, and so Ms. Coyle actually caught this, but it would have been better had we caught the entire thing, so it's now corrected.
Is guy's last name Colonel Clink?
I have no idea.
The only other question, do we normally retire badges? I saw a
Yes.
payment to retire a badge.
No, these are as an individual retires. It's customary inside of the police service. When somebody retires, they get issued a retired badge that they carry with them. So Sergeant Heinlein, in fact, he just had his retirement dinner last night, and he was presented that by Chief Grimes.
Yeah, I must not have noticed them before. It seemed new to me. Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. We're on to correspondence. Anything we need to discuss under correspondence, Mr. Lauer?
No.
Okay, moving on to minutes. Does any member of council have any questions or comments with regard to any of the committee meeting minutes?
No, thank you.
Okay, moving on to miscellaneous. Rolling Hills Park, Phase 1.
So, out of our discussion, the one item of consensus I thought was that council wanted to give residents an opportunity to discuss further the park. I didn't know whether you wanted to do that as a separate public hearing and or whether you wanted to do that as part of a council meeting. The other thing that I needed some direction on is that if we're having a public hearing, do you believe it's appropriate to bring back the consultant who actually did the design that's contained in the master plan, as well as we can bring in somebody who has experience operating swimming pools in Western Pennsylvania?
I think that it would be a very good idea to have a public hearing, a separate public hearing, not part of our meeting. I think Mrs. Shaner was correct in what she's reading from the populace. There's a lot of questions out there. There were a lot of questions on the part of council as far as what operating costs might be, what some of the good things, bad things, as an operation might be. And I think that if we brought in not only the people that did the design, but somebody who has practical experience in actually operating one of these, they could probably shed some valuable light. Plus, I think that we've been through this discussion in public meetings and workshops a number of times, and I think it's about time to wrap it up. And if anybody wants to come and talk about it, good. We're very happy. Hope you be here. And but there needs to be some resolution on it. And I think that the other piece of it is that we have to have a little serious discussion about how it's going to get paid for, because this is the history of this project. Is that everybody says yeah I want a pool, and then we tell them how much it's going to cost, and they say okay, so what? And then we say, how would you like to pay for it? A tax increase, a bond issue? Oh, no, we don't want to do that. So, it's all got to be put together. And I think that this would be a real good time, and I would hope that we could structure that meeting in such a way that we address specifically those issues. Mm-hmm. And then anybody that would like to address it, we'd be very happy to hear what people think.
Yeah, I think we better reserve the middle school for that, too.
And I think you got to have them register in advance if they want to speak, and let's limit it in duration.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
We don't need to rehash all of the comments that have gone on for a year and a half.
We were there for 4 months. The one thing I did fail to bring out when we were here at the last workshop when we were talking about this, and you had the various financing options. I didn't see anything, and I may have missed it, but I had an issue about if we did those, if we borrowed the $20 million to do all these projects, or even if we did half the projects or whatever, what effect does that have on the township's borrowing capabilities down the road? Because I wouldn't want to be in a situation where we're taking out $20 million worth of debt and then have some catastrophic situation arise, like with that what are those things we're replacing every year, Mark? the
Corrugated
metal, and they all fail at the same time, and we need $2 million to.
I thought you were talking about a Ferris wheel.
Yeah. Well, we could have one of those too, but I didn't see anything on it. Did I miss that? Or?
Well, I did not present that, but and we can
I don't think
give you
we
that
need it at the
information.
hearing, but I would like to see it before we ultimately make a decision.
Yeah, what I can tell you is the borrowing capacity, the legal borrowing capacity of Peters Township is far greater than that.
Which is why we have the double A plus.
But I think in fairness, I
credit.
think people should understand what the legal borrowing capacity is. And what, and we have, one of the things we've always approached borrowing very conservatively here, and we should put that in perspective with where this is, so.
I think the other part of it, too, is that when we were at the workshop, we talked about some options as to what features might be part of an aquatic facility. And as Mrs. Shaner mentioned, there's a lot of people that say, oh, we need an indoor pool. There's a lot of people that say we need a wave pool or, a kid's pool or, a spray area, a lap pool, 4-lane, 6-lane. Those are all options that have been talked about. And I think people, all, including us, need to understand exactly what the financial dimensions of that are. And I think that's where the consultants could, if they would prepare this, say, here's the 6 things that you've talked about, and then we get that into the borrowing capacity, because while we may have the legal capacity to borrow, the more we borrow, the more it affects our bond rating, which affects the cost of money for everything else we do.
Okay. I'd like to know what the options would be as in the event that, let's say, we didn't want to spend the $10.8 million on the aquatics facility, but we still wanted to borrow more than the 10. What we could use that, what other projects within that park could be funded with that $11 million? Yeah. Because I don't think we covered every conceivable option there.
No, that's the one thing about that.
There were those paddle, what is, no paddle.
Oh, you
all that stuff
all
wasn't included
all
in the
those
original.
courts areas. If you didn't do the pool, you could do all those court areas. Yeah. So okay, I understand what you're after. Let me talk to the consultant. Let me talk to the individual I have in mind to come down and talk about operations. Let's see whether or not we can get a date that works.
Yeah, and I would only suggest that, at least from my standpoint, it would have to be after April 15th, and I don't know that you could do it sooner than
I don't think I can get it organized quicker than that, so yes. So I think you're looking at late April or May.
Now, does that compromise what we're going to do with the road? Restraining not the common road. And part of this money is to fund that.
And half of this money is for things that are either already committed or that loop road that comes around. And that bond issue is going to have to go ahead one way or the other. But I think we're going to cause confusion inside the community if we go out and suddenly start borrowing money. They're not going to be able to differentiate between the two. And I think you're going to create a problem at the public hearing where people are going to take the position you've already made your minds up. Why are you asking us? We can wait. We can wait. But we can't wait much beyond that to do that initial borrowing.
That would have been my concern.
Yeah. The other, I did provide you, because one of the questions that came up, Ryan was able to reach out to Mount Lebanon and Cranberry to get information over the last few years about what the revenues and expenditures were, so we don't need to talk about that tonight. We are in the process of trying to get the same information from Scott Township as well as Cannonsburg, so that you can have some idea of how this works in terms of revenues versus expenditures, operating expenditures. I know on the miscellaneous, Columbia Gas, is it the whole length of this ramp, Mark?
As far as I know.
Yeah, Columbia Gas needs to do an emergency replacement of a gas line down this ramp that coming off of Route 19. They'd like to do this work at night. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't permit them to do that.
That would probably be fine.
That ramp that goes past the tar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the road in front of Tar Storage that.
Yeah. Oh, it's on the other side of 19.
Yeah,
Okay.
the one that's coming south.
Yeah, there's nothing. They got a storage unit over there.
Well, You may not get to it for a day or two.
I never get to it.
The final thing I have that I have provided you, there is a tentative schedule for places that we're going to visit on the township tour. If you would take a look at that, if anybody has any ideas of things that you would like to see us include that is not included there, we would be happy to include that. Just send me an email, and we've got time yet, so.
Just an overnight
I
trip.
think there's way too much on there.
I believe it will take us the 4 hours that are normally designated for this.
Well, I mean, I just looked at it when I came in here, and I mean, we have all this stuff about the sanitary authority. I mean, we just had a big update all about that. I mean, do we really have to go down there and see what we just spent hours talking about?
Millions of dollars on?
Well, I thought you might want to see the plant. They've got 2 interceptor projects that are getting ready to go. They have a major repair to a line in Hidden Valley, and down in that area on Oakwood, they've got that project's going to tear up that neighborhood. And I thought you might want to see that before they do it, because although they have releases from everyone, the scale of that project is going to be dramatic.
I notice it. I see it every day.
So I don't intend to spend, and Enoch will even point this out to, he says, I don't know how excited people get about sewage treatment plants. He says, I get real excited, but the intention isn't to spend a lot of time there, but just briefly visit what's been completed.
Okay.
All right, anything else under miscellaneous?
No.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. I'd like to ask Mr. Lauer where we are with the cable board candidates.
Your cable board candidate from the high school couldn't make it tonight, and that's why they were not here. Our intention is to schedule that interview for the next meeting. There is, in addition to that student, there is an adult who has expressed interest. Do you want to interview that adult as well?
I think we should.
Okay. So our
I would
intention
like
is.
to. I don't know what the rest of council feels.
Our intention is to do that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and then I had a question. You were kind enough to send out the notice about the tree cutting on Sugar Camp heading towards tracks. And I had an inquiry about that and whether or not you were going to do that. We, the township, were going to do it on Churchill, all the way up Churchill. Apparently, there's some consensus that a little work could be done there.
So we, as council may be aware, we have budgeted $50,000 for tree trimming. I got together with Mark and Joe to try to prioritize this because there's more trees than there is money. So what we're planning in terms of trimming along roads this year is that section of Sugar Camp and then McClellan. We think we're going to probably be into McClellan paving in the next couple of years, and we wanted to get it cleared before we do that work. So that's what we're going to be doing this year. We're going to look at it again next year. It's one of the things we're going to look when we're out on the road tour. I don't know that everybody's had a chance to see Sienna Trails and what an improvement that is on there. And we're going to juxtapose that because we're going to take you up Snyder Lane, and that's kind of what Sienna Trail looked like before we did the work. And when you go down Snyder, it's not safe with the trees as close to the road as they are. So,
Thank you for the information.
Does anyone have anything they want to see on the next agenda?
No, but I have another 2 cents. I'm not a Boy Scout, but I would have to say, Peters Lake Park is just overridden with dead trees and down trees. I mean, I spent better part of Saturday out there with my own chainsaw clearing out stuff that had fallen down. I mean, it's universal across the township, what we've gone through. So Boy Scouts could go out with, I don't know that we let them use chainsaws, hand saws would probably work.
Could I ask a question off of that, Mr. Lewis? So given everything that's dead and fallen down and has been laying there and is dying, what kind of situation are we at risk for somebody out there with a fire or, I mean, is there a danger? I mean, I live in...
Not with all the rain we've been having.
Well, no, but I'm saying...
But that's a natural state in a forested area with trees being left, and that's what we do in those large areas. We drop them and let them lay because there's no easy, you get around the lake, there's no easy way to get those trees up.
They do keep them off of the trail if they have to fall across the trail.
Yes.
And that's in essence what I was out there
there any grant money available for trees?
Not that I know of it. And the problem is, this is a universal problem.
Well, I know,
Everybody's
but
facing the same
maybe we
thing.
should make an inquiry. I mean, maybe we could get something that is out there that nobody knows about. Who knows?
Let me check.
Anyone else have anything?
Why should we pay for it?
Yeah, we have an executive session tonight?
Brief one.
All right.
We do. It says
Meeting
it
adjourned.
on here.
I know.
Thank you.